Hi there, honey bunnies. You are joining me in a park today, which is lovely. It's lovely to make a video outside again. You are going to hear some noises, some general public noises, some dogs, some kids, some shouting, etc. But hopefully it won't detract too much from the message of today's video, which is all about reclaiming space and taking control of actual physical space. I want to talk a little bit about getting out of the funk with space. If you feel like the place where you live, the place where you lie down to sleep every single night just isn't what you want it to be. It's not feeling right. It's not feeling like a fizzy place for you to hang out. You're just not really feeling it. Maybe you were feeling it, but now you're not. Maybe you were never feeling it and you want to figure out how to feel it. There are a bunch of different reasons why a person might not necessarily feel at home in their home. For some people watching this, you might not yet be living in your own home. You might be living with parents, or you might have moved back in with parents, or you might be living with a partner's parents. You might be living with other family members. It might be a stopgap for you while you save money, while you study, while you figure out what your next move is, while you get treatment for a mental health disorder, for a physical injury, for an addiction, you know. So you might not actually be able to say that the front door that you sleep behind every single night is actually your front door. You might be in shared accommodation, living with friends, or living with people who were strangers until you moved in. And that also presents a lot of limitations, a lot of challenges, a lot of weird feelings about shared areas and stuff like that. You know, dealing with different people's energy, not having your own space. You might be living with a partner, but maybe you have very different ideas about what the space needs to be like. Or maybe you are just living with stuff. Maybe you're living with a lot of stuff. You need to declutter. You are hoarding things from the past. You don't have enough space, or you feel like you don't have enough space because there's just stuff everywhere. You know, and you feel a little bit bombarded, a little bit invaded by the stuff. So there's tons of different reasons, and I'm sure I've only listed a little cross section of them as I've just been talking. One thing that I will say to you, if you're watching this video and you feel like your space is not really how you want it to be, or it's not the ideal situation, is please don't tell yourself that you've got to wait until you are in the perfect place, or until you are in your own home, or until everything is where it needs to be before you can level up in life, before you can stop playing the small game, before you can recover, before you can thrive, before you can start your business, before you can start that painting. It doesn't need to be a picture perfect situation. Don't convince yourself that you have to put your life on pause until everything looks and feels perfect. A lot of the time, to be honest, that's just a story that we tell ourselves so that we can remain in a place of safety and in a place of non-action. It is highly likely that you can take some positive steps in the very, very near future, maybe even today after you've watched this, to make your home, wherever you are, wherever you live, whether it's in a room in somebody else's home or whether you have an entire house, to make your place where you reside feel better and feel more positive for you and feel like a place you actually want to be. You might want to start by just leveling with yourself and being very honest and being very raw about what the space where you're living actually means to you, what it symbolizes, etc. And if any bad shit has gone down there that's made you feel like you're out of step with the place, then just level with yourself about that. Be honest with yourself about that, because 9 times out of 10 we need to accept the living situation for what it is before we can make any positive change whatsoever. So the best thing to do is, if you've lived in your home with a partner and it was a bad breakup and that partner is gone and you are needing to reclaim the space as a single person, write that down, say that out loud, talk about it with a friend, talk about it with a therapist, you know, really be honest with yourself about the fact that that is the struggle for you, is that it doesn't feel like it's your place. It felt like it was your place with your partner, and now that's shot to shit. You feel crappy. If you're living with your parents and you feel like there's a lot of stuff coming up for you because you're living with your parents, and you feel restricted, and you know, you feel like every day is a little bit of a battle, you know, it's your will against theirs, say that, be honest about it, be open about it, write it down, record yourself saying it, talk to a friend, talk to a therapist. You know, I think you've got to get real about what the limitations are. And it's only once you've gotten real about what your home symbolizes to you, or what your feelings are about it, that you can decide, okay, despite that, I am going to decide that my relationship with the home is going to be healthier. It is going to be more positive. Despite these challenges, despite these limitations, despite this stuff that happened here, it's where I live right now. It's where I am right now. and I deserve to be able to feel that it is a place where I can have some respite, where it is somewhat of a haven for me. If you're listening to me and you're thinking, well, I don't feel like I deserve that, you know, I'm low on self-love right now, I'm low on self-esteem right now, maybe I don't believe that I deserve to have a nice place where I live, a nice room or a nice situation, a nice apartment, then I would ask you instead to think about whether or not it would be useful and productive to feel better about your home. You know, cut whether or not you're worthy of it out of the equation and just think to yourself, is it more useful or less useful to have a more healthy, positive relationship with the place that I reside in? Ask yourself, would I be a more productive, more effectual human being if I felt more positive about where I lived? Because to be honest with you, if you wake up in a place where you don't feel right and you feel like crap and you feel at odds with the environment, and then you have to go to sleep in a place where you don't feel right and you feel like crap and you feel at odds with the environment, I reckon it's probably a dead certainty that you're not being your most productive, most effectual, most healthy self. So just think about that. Just think about, you know, the effectiveness that could come from you feeling like you have a better relationship with wherever it is that you live right now, whether it's a stopgap, whether you can see the end in sight or whether you can't. Just think to yourself, how much more productive would I be? How much kinder and more compassionate could I potentially be if I felt better about where I lived, about my surroundings on a daily basis? Once you've accepted that the place where you live has baggage for you, or it's a symbol of something unpleasant for you, or you just feel completely out of alignment with it, you feel detached from it, you feel like you don't really have a relationship with it, I think that's the point of realism, where you can decide that you are going to start to implement behaviours and actions that will hopefully bring positive change. And I think at that point, you then have, you know, your basis for getting something done and feeling better. I reckon probably the best thing to do at that point is to decide that you're only going to try to implement changes around the things that you can actually control. And you're only going to accept responsibility for that which you can control. And I think this comes from a very personal place in my own story, where I spent the majority of my 20s in shared accommodation, shared living, mostly with friends. So we would get a house and we would all have, you know, different rooms in the house or whatever. Or one of us would start renting in a shared house, and then as the rooms became available, we would recommend our friends to the landlady, and then the landlady would let our friends in, so it would become like our shared home. And I had some amazing experiences of shared living, there's no doubt about it, and I had some really positive, uplifting experiences, but I also learned some fucking hard lessons, and I lost some friends. I really saw the shitty side of people, and I had one situation where I lived in a fairly nice, shared accommodation experience with friends, and we invited a friend of ours into the equation. With the benefit of hindsight, I definitely should have seen that this was where it was going to end up, but essentially his behaviour, his recklessness, the company that he kept, his untidiness, his disrespect, his constant self-destruct mode poisoned the atmosphere in that house. And at the time, it was for quite a while not a possibility for me to leave. So it got worse and worse and worse. The atmosphere soured and soured and soured and soured. The story is ridiculous. Whenever I tell someone the ins and outs of the story of what happened and how it all like crescendoed, they're shocked. Basically, it wasn't a nice time for me. But what I learned as a result of that situation, and as a result of the next situation I walked into, which also wasn't ideal, where I was living with friends who had issues and, you know, addiction issues and that kind of thing, was that you can only take responsibility for that which is within your control. There is absolutely no fucking point trying to take control of anything else. You can express your needs and your concerns to the person or people that you live with. If you feel like they're poisoning the atmosphere in the home, like they are being disrespectful, they're breaking the rules or whatever that have been set up, you can talk to them, you can express your concerns to them, but ultimately you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You know, they need to take action on their own behalf, and if they're not doing that, you shouldn't tell yourself that that means that you can't have any positive feelings about where you live. That's not fair. That's really not fair on you. You deserve to have quiet moments of respite. You deserve to feel that you have a haven. You deserve to feel like you at least have, you know, one room or one space in the room where you feel like you can go and just sit and just be. There's a gig going on in a field behind me, and it was actually quite quiet before, but it's really loud now. It's like they've turned their speakers up. They've decided to like give it hell. So if you're living in a situation where other people around you are just fouling up the atmosphere or not playing by the rules or otherwise not really harmonizing themselves with you and with the space, don't tell yourself that means that you can't have any respite in the space. You can't have anything for you in the space. You can't have any good feeling in the space. If anything, you've got a duty to yourself to make your room or your little sort of bit of the situation as positive and as comfortable and as homely as you can make it, so that at least that part of the space feels good and feels comfy. In order to shift up the energy of the space, I know it sounds like a cliche, you've probably heard it before, and I know it also sounds like the boring way round and the crappy way round, but 9 times out of 10 it's more important to clean physically first than it is to clean spiritually or like energetically. And I've definitely found that, and it is kind of annoying. I've definitely attempted to do a big spiritual cleanse on a place in my home where I knew that I didn't know what was in every drawer and every cupboard. I knew that there needed to be some probably deep cleaning done or whatever, but I tried to do the big spiritual cleanse first, and it just didn't go off the same way that it would have done. And I knew that it didn't. You know, in the aftermath, I kind of wished that I had done the physical cleaning first. So it's really about physical cleaning and physical decluttering. That's basically where a lot of people have got to start. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, the reason that I'm feeling at odds with my home and not enjoying my space is because I am hoarding things and I do need to declutter, then your problems might go a little bit deeper than just scheduling some time to clean and tidy and get rid of things, because you might actually have some sort of tangled, knotted emotions around that process of decluttering. So for you, I would definitely advise that you start watching some videos about it, reading some blog posts about it. If you want to hear more from me on decluttering, I actually have an audio workshop all about decluttering that aims to kind of help you on your way to decluttering your space if it's gotten out of hand. So I'll leave that down below. It's called CLUTTER BUG, and it's an audio workshop for people who specifically are struggling to get the motivation to declutter, and it kind of acts as a little bit of an ally on your decluttering process. So if that is an issue for you and you want to check that out, I'll leave the link down below. You know, I actually haven't read that book. I think it's called the Magic of Tidying Up or something, like, you know, it's like it's become a fast and hard classic, guys. I think you know what I mean. I haven't read it myself personally, but I know a lot of people have gotten a lot from it, and there's this whole process in there about figuring out whether or not you actually need something and stuff, and a lot of people have benefited hugely from the theory that has been posited in that book. So I'll also leave the name of that book and the author down below if you want to read something that I hear has been hugely beneficial for a lot of people. I've had quite a few clients and audience members tell me that it's been amazing. I think it's The Magical Art of Tidying Up or something like that, but it sounds like really radical, so definitely consider that as well if you are struggling with having too many things and not really understanding what you need and what you don't need, and just feeling, you know, an emotional pull towards everything. If you tell yourself you've got too much on your plate, you're too busy, there's no way that you can possibly clean your space, declutter your space, then really ask yourself if you're telling yourself a story that's just keeping you stuck where you are, keeping you stuck, disliking where you live, disliking the environment, disliking the atmosphere. Are you serious about making the change or not? Because I can only tell you that there is a huge value and a huge benefit to physically cleaning, decluttering, getting that floor hoovered or swept, you know, all of that. There's a huge benefit to doing that before you actually take control on a spiritual level, but only you can decide if you're willing to actually put the time and the energy aside to do that. It is worth your time and it is worth your focus. It's definitely a worthwhile thing to do before you try to implement anything psycho-spiritual or energetic. But it maybe does require that other things are put on the back burner. It maybe does require that you rejiggle your priorities so that decluttering and cleaning is at the forefront. You know, and you've really got to think about your intentions for wanting to reclaim your space and forge a new relationship with your space. So think about those intentions, you know, like let's think of a few examples. So if you live with your parents at the moment and you feel like they really have the run of the whole house and you've just got that one room that's your room, and you feel like every time you step outside you're in their world, and maybe that's bringing up a lot of weird things for you emotionally as well, you know, just feeling like you don't have your independence and that kind of thing, and you're sort of under their rule, then your motivation for making your room into a delightful high vibe haven is so that you have just that one little piece of sanctuary in the world that you feel reflects you to the greatest extent that it can reflect you. Okay, if you're not allowed to put posters up or you're not allowed to change the colour of the walls, Don't tell yourself that's a reason not to do anything to make the room more in keeping with who you are as a human being. I think that's the thing a lot of people tell themselves. Like I said at the beginning of this video, right? We tell ourselves that if something can't be perfect, and if something can't be an exact reflection of who we are, and if we can't have all of the space and make all of the decisions and have everything just as we want it, just as it would be in the brochure inside our head, then it's not worth it. It's just you know, you're out of alignment with your space, and that's it. There's nothing you can really do to change that. Instead, you need to decide that you're going to make that commitment to realism, and you're going to make that commitment to piecemeal implementation of small things that are going to make you feel like the space is happier, more comfortable, more you, basically. So if you are living at home with your parents and you just feel like you're living in a domain that has got really not much to do with you and it's restrictive, then you've got to find any little things that you can do to reclaim the small piece of space that is yours. If you are living with a partner and you feel like things are tense right now, but you're not sure whether or not you can move out, or if you want to move out or whatever, then your motivation for feeling comfortable in your skin is that you don't deserve to come home from work or come home from studying or come home from wherever, walk into your home and feel like you don't have any space that belongs to you. You don't have any sense of respite and sanctuary. It's not good for your emotional well-being. It's not good for your physical and mental well-being. That is your motivation to try to make things better. If you are a parent and you don't feel at home in your space and you don't feel aligned with your space, then think of your parenthood as part of your motivation to feel more comfortable. If you feel more comfortable and if you feel more at home and you're more relaxed, then you're going to be passing that energy outwards to your kids when you are in the company of your kids, and then they're going to feel more relaxed and they're going to feel more at home. You know, they're going to enjoy life more. You know, think about your motivations. Why are you doing this? If you still feel very resistant to tidying, decluttering and all of that stuff, then I would say that it's possible that there is a part of you that sort of wants to remain stuck. For a lot of people, if they're not willing to make that initial commitment, if they're telling themselves stories about how they've got absolutely no time, they've got a million things they need to do first or whatever, or they just don't have the motivation, they feel lazy about it, they can't do it, I often feel that they're scared of what would happen and how they could level up in their life if they actually did do it, genuinely. I really do believe that whole Marianne Williamson shizzle about how a lot more people are afraid of their success than they are afraid of their failure, or that we have like basically a deeper fear of our success than we do of our failure. I think we are afraid to shine brightly in the world. I think for a lot of us that is actually the crux of the issue in a lot of cases with a lot of situations. And I feel like if you are being apathetic and telling yourself stories about how there's nothing you can do to level up the space and there's nothing you can do to harmonise with it, or you haven't got time to clean or tidy or whatever, that might be what's really at the bottom of it. It's like you want to stay stuck because the stuck place that you're in feels comfortable and it feels safe. It also feels small and it feels shitty, but it feels fucking familiar to you. And that's really it, you know. A lot of people wonder why they keep stuck in a cycle and why they don't find the motivation to change it. But honestly, familiarity is warmth for a lot of people. If it feels like what's been the case for a long time, then anything that could be contrary to that or different to that feels scary, it feels intimidating, it feels overwhelming, and sometimes we feel like we're not big enough to handle positive change. We tell ourselves that we are small and that we need to play the small game, even though that's not the case at all. Try and stay cheery and high vibe while you tidy and declutter and all that kind of stuff and clean. Put some really good music on or some really good podcasts. Learn something new if you want to learn something new. Listen to something that you've never learned anything about, or revisit some old albums. Explore some old albums that you haven't listened to for years that you really, really love. You can put me on if you're partial to my videos, you know, you can just listen to me chatting away. I will accompany you. I've had a lot of emails and messages from people who say that I accompanied them, you know, during a difficult pregnancy, or while they were redecorating their home, or while they were driving cross country after leaving their partner after many unhappy years of union together. And I'm just like, you know what, I love that I've managed to insert myself into your life in that really significant, beautiful way. Like, how wonderful. And now I'm being told about it. It's totally magic. Make it into a soothing process for yourself. But if you know that you're the kind of person that gets very bogged down in the decluttering and tidying and stuff, then absolutely do set a deadline. A realistic deadline, a fucking manageable deadline. Don't go crackers, okay? You want to make sure that it is it's paced. It's a deadline that you can handle, but make it a little bit cheeky. Make it a little bit like, ooh, can I do that? Can't I do that? You know, if that's the kind of thing that motivates you. If you like a challenge, then give yourself a challenge, but don't run yourself ragged trying to do it. Keep your intentions in mind all the time. Whenever you feel like, oh God, I just can't be bothered with this, or this is just stressful or whatever, go to your written list of intentions, your reasons for doing what you're doing. You know, write them down so you can revisit them and return to them. Write them down in multiple different places. Stick them on the fridge, put them in your Filofax, have them as the background on your phone. You know, keep reminding yourself of why you're reclaiming the space, whether it is just one corner of a room or whether it is a 6-bedroom fucking house with land. You know, whatever it is, whatever the situation, just remind yourself of why you are doing what you're doing. You know, the fact that when you feel good about the place where you reside, when you feel like it reflects you a little bit more and you can at least relax in it, you can get more things done. You can be of more service in the world. You can be of more service to yourself and others. You can create better art. You can allow your thoughts to process and come together in a more effective way, whatever, however many motivations you have to make the space feel more comfortable and more you, write them down and revisit them. When the space is reasonably clean and decluttered, that's when you're going to want to move into the energetic stuff or the spiritual stuff that's really going to feel like you've sealed the deal, like you've clicked things into place and it now does feel as though it has a different energy. And for me, that involves a few different things, a few different parts of the process. First of all, I sit down and I plan what I might want to do in terms of the type of cleanse that I want to do and any associated rituals that I might want to do to really sort of christen the space, basically baptize the space and say, you are now for this purpose. This space is now my fucking domain. It's my kingdom. You know, it's a place of power on this earth for me, so I can do what I need to do. So I sit down and I figure that out and I kind of go through some ideas, and I really like that. That's a really delicious part of the process, is just like basically figuring out how I'm going to symbolize, yes, this space is now mine and whatnot. And then before I do that, before I do a cleanse, before I do a ritual, before I do any of that stuff, I cleanse me. I really enjoy having ritual baths. I know for some people that doesn't work and for some people it does. For me, I really enjoy doing that. Baths can also be very healing for me. They're very good for the injury that I have in my lower spine. So there is also that sort of therapeutic vibe to the process as well. I really enjoy just kind of like putting sliced lemon into the bath and salts or different bits and pieces that I get from different sort of apothecaries and, you know, like independent sellers, and just things that I find that I feel like, yeah, this will be really nice. And I just have my ritual bath and I chant in the bath, and I might read a little bit of poetry in the bath and just meditate and have my time. I have my time to cleanse myself. And during that time in the bath, if I'm going to be moving on to doing a ritual and an actual space clearing or house cleansing or whatever, I'm probably going to be thinking about my intentions for doing that, and I'm going to be getting geared up to do that. I'm going to be reminding myself that I am worthy of space that feels like it aligns itself with me, and I'm worthy of feeling at least safe and at least capable of relaxation and calm in my own space. If you want, you can walk through smoke in order to cleanse yourself. You can consecrate incense and then walk through the smoke as a way to symbolize that you're cleansing yourself of any resentment or hard feelings that you have towards the space. The cleanse is supposed to represent that you are willing to see the space differently, that you are open to the possibilities that the space has to offer you, that you are not going to hang on to resentment or bitterness or bad feeling towards the space anymore, that you are in readiness to receive what the space now has to offer, that you're moving into a new phase with the space. And that's basically what it represents. It's not like the cleanse is going to cleanse you of every problem you have and every challenge you face and every bad feeling you have about anything. It's a specific cleanse. It's supposed to cleanse away your rigidity in your perspective. That's how I see it. That's the way that it's really worked best for me. The cleansing ritual bath and anything else that I want to do, if I want to chant, if I want to read cards for myself as a way to really set my intentions and move deeper into the idea of reclaiming the space, all of that stuff is specific to reclaiming whatever space I'm reclaiming. And I had to do this when my long-term partner moved out of my flat. It was a weird place to be after he left, and I'd never lived on my own before. And I had to really just kind of cleanse me. I had to say to myself, okay, I'm willing to see this flat as a place where I can be on my own, as a place where I can thrive on my own. And I had a lot of weird fucking feelings towards the space after he left. a lot of weird feelings. There was a lot of old gunky energy and just a lot of things that I associated with the past, with what had then become the past. And I had to do my best to kind of believe that I could reshape my relationship with the space. So for me, that's what the cleansing was about in my case. There's so many different ways that you can cleanse and just clear your energy and feel like you've come back to a place of center and a place of neutrality. For some people, it's going to be chanting, or it's going to be praying. You know, for some people, it's going to be listening to music. For some people, they want to go on a retreat, or they want to have a period of silence. You know, they just want to literally be in their home and be silent for a number of hours. For some people, it's deep meditation. There's just so many different ways that you can do it, and it's got to be about finding what's right for you. Some people like to set up a crystal grid and do it that way, you know, or sit in sacred space naked and just, you know, ask their deity or spirit to cleanse them and move through them. Like, there's so many different ways that you can do it. For some people, they like to go to a place that they find to be cleansing and healing and say some words of power in that space that are going to really help them to come home to themselves. A road trip can be cleansing for some people. You know, immersing yourself in a body of natural water can be cleansing for some people. Whatever you want to do, whatever feels right for you. Use creative visualization. You know, sit on your bed, close your eyes, and just imagine that you're being enveloped by white light. White light is such a cliche, but it fucking works, you know? Really envision the white light surrounding you. Envision exhaling any muck, any grit, any dirt that you feel is in you, any resentment, any backed up feelings of apathy or self-criticism or anger towards the space. Cough it all up, sick it all up. Imagine that. Imagine anything you want to imagine. Creative visualization can be used in such a cleansing, healing, rejuvenating capacity. Don't underestimate the possibilities for creative visualization. But also, I would say, don't look for someone else to tell you how to do it, or what to do, or what to envision, or how to think about it. Like, really go there yourself. Think about what is going to be the best thing for you. Magic and ritual, all the woo-woo shit, all the psycho-spiritual stuff, it's better when customized. You know, it's cookie cutter, off the shelf bullshit is not going to be anywhere near as effective as tuning in with you and thinking, okay, what's good for me? What would be a great soundtrack to this for me? What would be a great series of steps for me? What goes with my personality? What taps into the sense of what it means to be cleansed for me as an individual? Because even the word cleanse means different things to different people. Some people don't even vibe with that word because it sounds like it's to do with shame and religious dogma or whatever. Like, and some people really love that word and they're very, like, you know, they feel like it's very high vibe. For some people, they hate the term high vibe. Like, different words mean different things to different people. So don't ask somebody else to explain to you the series of steps to take to feel cleansed and to feel like your relationship with a space is cleansed. Think about you as an individual. What would be the best thing for you? And develop your cleansing process in that vein. At that point, once I feel like I'm cleansed and I feel like I'm at least willing to accept the possibility of a completely new spectrum of experiences that I could have inside the space, and I'm willing to, like, believe that I have the power to make a space into what the fuck I want it to be, at that point I'm ready to meet the space again. And that means some kind of ritual, most likely, and some kind of cleansing process. Now, when you cleanse a space, you can do so in a whole bunch of different ways. You can walk around with your working candle if you have a working candle, or just light a candle. You know, if you don't consecrate candles or work with candles in your practice, but you want to make the candle feel special or significant, then I would recommend carving something into it that's significant for you. Even if it's just your initials, you can do that. And then walk around to every corner of the room and all around the room and cover every area of the space, speaking to the room, telling the room what your intentions for the room are, blessing the room. Give good love to the room, send good vibes out into the room, whatever feels right for you to do. Some people really like to use a candle to just walk around and pass the flame up and down and just imagine the warmth from the flame and the possibility and positivity from the flame emanating outwards into every corner of the room. For other people, you might want to think of sound cleansing as a better possibility. So use a singing bowl, use some chimes if you have chimes, use a bell, you could use a drum if you want to, and walk around the room, sending the sound out into every area of the room, making those vibrations shift and change, and thinking about your intentions for the space, what you want to bring to the space, whether it's the whole home or just a corner of a room where you've got your altar or whatever. If you live in a room with a partner, there's all kinds of different situations. So I hope that you are managing to customize this to your needs as you hear me talking, because I know there are lots of different reasons why somebody might need to cleanse space or whatever. So basically think about it for your situation. Essentially, you can do a smoke cleansing, you can use incense and walk around the room with that, and you can just use words of power if you want to. You can just write down a few sentences that reflect what you want for the space and what your intentions are for the space, and then walk around and just say those words of power. Hold your hand out to the walls and just really command those words of power into the space. Do whatever feels right for you. Do what actually feels solid and juicy for you. A ritual for the space could include dancing wildly around the space while you listen to your favorite music. It could include meditation. It could include chanting. You could definitely pull out some cards, some oracle or tarot cards that represent how you want to feel about the space and what your intentions are for the space from now on, and just lay them down on the floor and actually just speak over them and say, this represents this about the space and what I'm going to bring to it. This represents this and what is going to be banished and what is no longer going to be in the space anymore. Really talk through the plans that you have for that space, honey bunny. There's just so many possibilities. Brainstorm, strategize, think about what is going to be the most meaningful thing for you. And again, don't wait for somebody to tell you the best way to set up a ritual to reclaim space. You know what's happened in that space that's made you feel funky and shitty, and you therefore understand in a way how to get back on track. It's just a matter of actually looking at the possibilities, feeling inspired, getting creative, and then putting something together. After you've done a ritual, after you've set fire to a posh hammer to make it official, Mighty Boosh styly, then you're going to want to carry on in that vein from that point forward. Okay, so you've got that fresh feeling of just reclaiming the space and feeling like everything is new and fizzy and wonderful, but you don't want to then go back into old habits that are unhelpful and unhealthy that you may have exhibited before. So for example, if you know that you're living with people that you're feeling super angry with and super stressed with, and you are in a crappy back and forth with them and the communication that's going on with them and whatever, you've got to make a decision that you are going to play the game at a higher level than that. You're not going to get into that anymore. That's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. And you've got to make a decision that you're just going to spend time in your area of the home, doing what is good for you and feeling like you can have some respite in that area of the home. If you know that you have a tendency to make clutter and pile things up, you've got to have a contingency plan for not doing that. You've got to have some storage situation set up where things can be put away when you stop using them so things don't pile up. For me, my art stuff piles up, and my books pile up. So I have a special box for all of my art stuff, and I have a special smaller it's like a box bag type thing for the stuff that I use on a more regular basis that I want to hand. And as long as everything is in there, as long as everything is popped back in there every few days, it doesn't pile up and end up making me feel really shitty. When you do a ritual that's to do with space reclamation, you have to understand that it is a promise to yourself, and you have to honour that promise to yourself. And you might fall off the wagon every now and again, and you might end up feeling like you are going back into old habits, but it's about remembering your intention, recognizing the power of the ritual, and bringing yourself back to that sense of, this is what I want the space to be, and this is who I want to be within the space. And it's doing the ritual and doing the cleansing and doing the cleansing of self and doing the physical clearing and decluttering, which all make it easier for you to sustain your good progress. That's why we do magic. That's why we do ritual. That's why we center these woo-woo bits and pieces. That's why we set fire to the posh hammer, right? Because it really helps us to feel differently. It helps us to level up. It helps us to bring more consistency and more intention and more determination and tenacity to any process. And with space reclamation, that's really important. important because you want to start as you mean to go on. It might help you to have some kind of an object within your space which helps to remind you of what your intentions are, what your new relationship with the space is, and how you want to maintain that new relationship and feed into that new relationship. So it could be a crystal, it could be a house plant that you water and take care of, it could be a little statuette, it could be an image on the wall or by the bed that you've chosen that represents the new relationship that you're having with the space. Think about the power of a physical object as a reminder, and also as a way to just make you feel lighter and brighter about the space. You can do all manner of really, really cute little things that can make you feel better about where you are. You know, you can have a ribbon sash that you tie around the curtains when you open them so that that looks nicer. You can make a little picture or a little talisman of some kind that you have on the bedside table. You can listen to music in your home to fill up the space with positivity. It doesn't matter if you have to listen to it with your headphones in. It's about how you feel when you're in the room and the positive energy that you're feeling when you're in the room, and how that emanates outwards and helps you to reforge the connection with that space, with that home, with that room, so that it feels different to you. There's so much more I could say, as fucking always, guys, but I do hope that these suggestions have helped you and inspired you. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and much love until the next video. Blessed be. I'm not being funny, but the woman in this band sounds so American. It's almost like a try-hard American female vocal, you know, and you just know that she's gonna stop playing and have like a fucking Kent accent. Maybe not, maybe she genuinely is over from across the pond and it's all really authentic, but somehow I doubt it. Somehow I think this is very put on. It's like lacquered on almost. It's not good.